Hi, and welcome to Ladies of Another View. We have a jam-packed show today of two amazing guests. I'm here with Emily and Jan. And later in the show, we have Mark Jaritzma, and he is with the North. He's going to talk about a free conference, a Right to Life conference, right here in Bismarck at the Heritage Center. So stay tuned for that. You're going to want to hear what's brewing. And we have coming to us from Washington, D.C., U.S. Representative from Florida, Representative Kat Cammack. Welcome to the show. Uh-oh, we don't have sound. So
there we go.
We have sound now. You know, Representative Cammack, I am so in awe at you from start to finish. Jan here sent me a videotape. She goes, I wish we could have her on our phone or on our show. So I sent an email, and within minutes I heard back from your assistant, and we had you booked.
Oh, that's awesome. Thank you so much. Really proud of our team. They're awesome.
Well, you are awesome because I know you had something right before and you have something right after, and you came on our show. And so tell us, you are a representative in a conservative state, getting a lot of attacks lately. But let's start with, how is it that you decided to run for the House?
So, you know, I today find myself the youngest Republican woman in Congress in the country. And I tell people all the time, it is quite an honor, but it was never my life's dream or goal. I actually had an entire different path laid out for myself. I grew up the daughter of a single mom and was the first in my family to go to college, grew up on a small cattle ranch, was going to take over the family business. I'm actually a third generation commercial sandblaster. I know everyone's like, ooh, that's not exactly what you grew up wanting to be in your career as a sandblaster, but it wasn't until about April of 2011 that I kind of woke up, and that's when we ended up losing our family cattle ranch to a government program under the Obama years. And that's when I really woke up and decided, after being homeless, that I was not going to take it anymore. And I moved across country and started working on a campaign for a large animal veterinarian who, thankfully, by the grace of God and a lot of hard work, we won the race. And that's when my whole life kind of went in this other direction of fighting for working class people. And that was what started my journey into politics. So fast forward a few years, my then boss, Congressman Yoho, decided to retire. And I took my husband and my best friend to a little hole in the wall barbecue joint. And we had this discussion about, you know, should I run for this seat, or should we, you know, keep on going with our life and, you know, start a family? And I looked at my husband, I said, babe, do you want to have kids in the future? And look them in the eye and tell them that mom and dad did everything that we could to protect their future and their country. And he got a little emotional, kind of like I am right now. And he said, no, I think we need to do this. I don't think I could look our future kids in the eye and tell them that we did everything if we don't try. So we threw our hat in the race, had the largest primary field in the state of Florida. And today, like I said, youngest Republican woman in Congress today, from homeless to the House in less than a decade.
Wow, from sandblaster to homeless to the House. That is impressive. And your husband is a firefighter, isn't he?
Yes.
Real people, real jobs. You know, you get your hands dirty and you're jumping into the fray. Speaking of the fray, what are you working on in Washington now that everybody's back in session? What's going on this week?
Oh, well, you know, unfortunately, a lot of my days are comprised of reading through garbage pieces of legislation that Nancy Pelosi and company put forward, and finding all the horrible things in them so that I can then expose that to the world. I have really found that when you're in the minority, and, you know, Republicans right now, we don't control the House, we don't control the Senate, we don't control the White House. We are very limited in what we can do, but the things that we can control is getting the word out. And there's so much garbage in these bills. So it's important that we, one, read them, which I have found that not a lot of people actually read the bills. So one, I spent a lot of my time reading the bills, digging into them, finding some of the most egregious pieces of garbage in them, and then exposing. And I spent a lot of time also educating people. I think when we, the people, are motivated and engaged and educated on the issues and the process, that's when we can really be effective in changing government for the better. And so I spend a lot of time really communicating with constituents and teaching people how to engage with government in a way that's productive. And right now, we're facing some pretty uphill battles. The Senate is looking at basically federalizing elections, which is a very dangerous thing. And of course, we know that the Democrats are looking to resurrect the Build Back Broke bill, which was the largest and most expensive bill in American history. And it would have been the largest tax increase in American history. And they're trying to bring it back now that the new year has started. So a lot of my time is being focused on stopping all this garbage from making its way across the finish line.
Speaking about being responsive, I just want to put a picture up on the screen from your Facebook page, and you wanted to know within 20 hours, you wanted to know what are the topics or questions you'd like, coming up, and you had 4.9 thousand comments in 20 hours. That's not only are you interested in what your constituents and what's going on in this country, but they're responding to you. That's very impressive.
Yeah, it's funny. I just did an interview about 30 minutes ago, and the reporter asked me, what pollsters in Washington do you listen to as you craft legislation? And I said, I don't listen to any Washington pollsters. The pollsters that I listen to are the people. And I used that very post that you just shared as an example of, with technology today, with all of our means of communication, there's no excuse for any representative not to have regular, open, transparent communication with their constituents. And I think it's a pretty effective, and as a fiscal conservative, I appreciate it. It's a way for me to communicate and get really the feedback of what's keeping people up at night. And there are a whole lot of issues out there that don't make the national news, that aren't headline grabbers, but they impact us on a daily basis. And it's everything from our kids in school and CRT to the cost of living. I've got a lot of seniors in my district that are concerned about inflation and living on a fixed income. These are things that'll never be on the front page of the newspaper, but there's a very important issue that we in Congress need to actually focus on.
I want to put your website up quickly so that anybody who wants to learn more, anybody who's watched just a snippet of it, there's a lot more to learn about Representative Cammack. And you can go to her website at cammack.house.gov. And Florida and your governor, DeSantis, has been getting beat up a lot. I think it's because, when you hit the target, a lot of people get uncomfortable. What's going on? What's some of the hypocrisy you're seeing?
Well, I think Florida, we've become an easy target because we've historically been known as, the state of Florida man, right? Where crazy stuff happens. But I think especially under COVID and the leadership of Governor DeSantis, we have seen a very thoughtful, pragmatic, common sense approach to governance. And our state legislature, which is a Republican-led legislature, we've really shown how you can approach something as serious as a pandemic with results that are keeping people safe, but we're not shutting our economy down. And we put a premium on early treatment, like monoclonal antibody treatments. And for that, we've had the bullseye, the target on our back from the very beginning. But I do think that there is something to be said about the politicians that want to slam Florida one day and then visit us and vacation there the next. I have colleagues like Representative Ocasio-Cortez and Representative Swalwell who have said that if you have a vacation that was canceled because of COVID, blame Republicans. Yet just last week, he was vacationing in the open and free sunshine state of Florida. And of course, we know that AOC, she was partying maskless and talking about how bad Florida was and how bad the COVID cases were and how poorly the state was being run. Oh, and by the way, where was Ron DeSantis, she said. Well, it turns out after so many horrible, awful, mean comments and tweets that my governor, Ron DeSantis, was accompanying his wife, Casey, to her breast cancer treatments. And to that, I got into a little bit of a Twitter spat of sorts with AOC. And I had to remind her that about 1 in 8 women in her own district are battling breast cancer right now. So it would probably be a good idea for her to rethink her comments about my governor and his wife, Casey, before she spouts off.
Wow.
Love it.
Okay, what is your take on, we're going to throw some quick questions at you. What is your take on the immigration situation right now?
Open border policy. I've been there 3 times to the border. I serve on the Homeland Security Committee, and it is a heartbreaking situation. But the thing that is most infuriating is it is a man-made, created situation coming directly out of the White House. I can't even call Biden the commander-in-chief anymore. I call him the trafficker-in-chief. Because once you have heard the stories, the horrific stories of how this government that is led by Biden has been complicit in completing the trafficking circle for the cartels, it just breaks your heart. On one particular occasion, I actually was at the southwest border and met a 9-year-old little girl who had been trafficked across the border. And she had been gang raped to the point of her vocal cords giving out. And it was actually US Border Patrol agents that rescued her in a field. And it was just the most gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching story. And it's just one of thousands. And it just breaks your heart, be it the children that are being used as pawns in the trafficking schemes that are going on, the drugs that are pouring into our communities that have resulted in every town in America being a border town. I mean, from start to finish, you can look no further than the southwest border and say, this is a crisis that was created by the administration, and shame on Biden and shame on his administration. It truly is a heartbreaking situation.
That's tough. Can you touch on CRT for us then as well?
Sure. The thing that people really don't realize about CRT and why it's so dangerous is that critical race theory is based in critical theory, which is the cornerstone of Lenin and the Marxist teachings that communism is rooted in. And it teaches children not that they have equal opportunity, but it's about equal outcome. So they focus on the end rather than the beginning. And that's so dangerous because children are not racist. They're not born racist. And what it does is it teaches that one child is the oppressor and the other is the oppressed. And it's creating this victimhood culture that is toxic. And the fact that we're seeing 3rd graders being taught this, it's really troubling because so much of the problems that we experience today start in education. And I think we really have to do a better job nationally of eradicating CRT in our schools, and we need to stop incentivizing our school systems from teaching this. And it's starting by getting rid of the bureaucrats and the activist bureaucrats in Washington.
Amen. So why are things like border security and CRT, why are they so controversial? Why aren't all of the representatives behind getting positive changes with those things?
I'm actually going to maybe throw out a not so popular or widely shared opinion on this. I think everyday Americans, I think we all collectively are pretty much in line with a common sense approach to governance and life. I think it's the extremes that get all of the attention. And particularly on the left, we have seen that if you don't champion this ultra progressive democratic socialist agenda, you get kicked out, you get pushed out. We've seen more and more moderate Democrats retire, lose their reelection campaigns over a radical liberal that is just hell-bent on this leftist agenda. And so I think it's the kind of squeaky wheel gets the grease mentality of the louder they scream and shout, the more they stomp their feet. That's the attention that they're getting. But I don't believe that it's reflective of what Americans as a whole believe in. I think that people are just really more comfortable with the idea of live and let live, and I don't want to be bothered with politics. I don't do politics. And before you know it, you've got these radical liberals in Washington who have basically co-opted the Democratic Party. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, I don't think I really identify with that, so I'm going to become a Republican or an independent. And so I think it's really this very aggressive liberal agenda that we see in all these very radical representatives in Washington. I think they are really representing a minority in our country, which is both encouraging and discouraging at the same time.
That leads to my next question. We only have a minute left. What do you think is going to happen at the midterm elections? Are people going to wake up and say, oh my gosh, we need to get some of these liberals out of there?
I think you're going to see the biggest red wave in American history. We will see more seats flip to red, and we will have an overwhelming Republican majority in the House and Senate, which is going to tee us up for 2024 for the presidential elections, which is going to be incredible. It's time that we take the House back, and when we take the House back, we take our country back.